What's the next layer of this tune? It's going to be a beat, probably. It's like we're just tasting it now. Flavor's about to register with the brain right now. Yep, it's lo-fi. Great song choice. Good vibes. Welcome back. My name is Blake. This is your Content Factory. This is a episode. I don't care what number anymore. Don't give a shit. Just welcome. Sit down. Pour yourself a cup of Joe. Pour yourself some hard liquor. Pour yourself some Kool-Aid. I don't care. But sit down and enjoy this because we're coming at you again with another, some shenanigans here. Basically, the point of this whole podcast, right, is to help you create your own content factory. We are the foundation of your content creation. I'm sitting here in Blue Form Media in our HQ, in our hot seat. This was like the first ever studio. We should probably do an episode where we showcase all of our studios here in the home. Now that we've got like 2 or 3, so it's kind of cool. And the modularity. We'll do a studio tour video. It'll be great. But we're gonna go right into it. Just gonna dive in. Dive into it like an eager kid at the public swimming pool. We're just going to jump right in. We don't even have floaties on. We don't even have our goggles secure. And then we're going to run to our mom and scream about how there's sunscreen and chlorine in our eye. But we're going to dive right in the shallow end too. The lifeguard's going to blow a whistle. It's going to be great. Today, this is geared at more podcasters, the host, the people, actually the face behind each brand of whatever podcast or whatever content you're doing. If you're sitting and staring in front of a camera telling people 3 things and that will help them real estate invest or whatever, whoever's behind the camera, whoever the personality is, this is geared at that individual. Okay. And we do a lot of podcasts. We currently produce 7 podcasts and we've done quite a few. So, and every year it just gets to be exponentially more and more and more podcasts that we have under our belt. And everybody's always coming at us with this kind of energy, which is good. We want this energy, but it's misplaced. So they come at us like, hey, Blueform, I think if we change the title or if we change the color or if we repurpose something like this and they want to change some aesthetic aspect of their podcast, right? Which is totally within their rights. It's their brand. It's their thing. But in the hopes of obtaining more viewers or more likes or whatever, right? Or to just feel good, or like someone's like, this is a weird looking background. And so then they're like, oh, I gotta change that, or somebody we made a mistake or something. And they're like, we need to change all this stuff. So it's very, very easy to get caught up in all of that. You're welcome to change all of your visual aspects at any time, in any project, in any brand that you do, but don't let that be everything. Okay, we have people with, a couple episodes under the belt trying to min-max their like YouTube thumbnails, So just to give you guys some perspective, you as a podcast host or as a content creator probably shouldn't worry about that as much as people do, is my point of this whole episode. So I want to talk about the nitty-gritty of becoming better, becoming a better host, becoming more interesting, becoming more affluent, more, better spoken in what you want to talk about, your knowledge, increasing your vocabulary, using tone, facial expression, hand gestures to emphasize, basically just emphasis, right? The podcast itself, if you're listening on audio right now, you can only hear, like same thing with like telephone. If you're talking to someone on the phone, if you're doing sales over the phone, if you're doing an interview over the phone or meeting with a client or if you only have audio, there's some things that are very, very, very important. But if you have audio and video, you can kind of you can maximize that medium as well. So these things there are hardly ever talked about in the podcasting world because everybody's like so caught up in thumbnails or intros and outros and what font and what brand and what logo and where does the logo get placed and what colors and all that stuff. Those are all very, very, very important, but we often overlook the host. What kind of skills does it take? Now, last episode we had Cody A. Dent on. He talks about that a lot in depth. I'm going to be going on, we'll touch on some things that he spoke about, but more of like how do you remain authentic? What kind of skill sets do I need to be a podcast host or to be an interesting person in general, right? If you're podcasting and you're going to have episodes like this where nobody's across the table from me, I don't have a guest, like I better be fucking interesting. Because if I'm not, like, what the that's stupid. Be interesting. Otherwise, like, don't be on the internet. You know, it's just that simple. Now, if you're fine with getting on the internet and not being interesting, if you have aims and goals to get more interesting, do it. Because not everybody's interesting to everybody all the time. Not everything is interesting to every single person everywhere, all the whole world, all the time, every day. Some people are interested in like Warhammer 40K like me, and I like that. I like listening to Warhammer 40K videos. I like playing nerd games. I like listening about Lord of the Rings and stuff. That doesn't interest half of my clientele. They think that's stupid. But they have other interests, right? So that's the whole point of this is like, just be as interesting as you can be. And if you're also interviewing somebody, there's a little bit different set of skills that you need to make sure your podcast is interesting, you know? And also try and pick interesting people too. Right? Someone that's like super local or like that's like completely obscure isn't going to really be interesting unless you know how to make it interesting. So example number 1, go find and go watch other people's podcasts that you enjoy, and then go watch other people's podcasts that are doing well, wherever you want to be. If you want to be like Gary V, go watch his podcasts. You know, if you want to be, who is the guy? Andy Frisella. If you want to be like him, he does great. Go watch him. Go emulate them. Go learn from them. Be interesting and have some opinions, right? That have some things that cause friction on your show, right? Like if this was a gun podcast, if I was talking about guns, and I was like 9mm better than 45, at me, you know, and they'd be like, people would lose their shit. Like the 1911 is not a good pistol, and the people would be like, in the comments, 2 world wars back to back. It was a sidearm, people. Guess what? Times have changed. I would take capacity over stopping power. And it's even debatable that a 45 ACP is stopping power, right? So like that opinion alone is going to fire some people up. If that's a clip out there and I'm going to put the proper hashtags and shit on there, like that's going to cause some tension. It's going to make people go, what? I got something to say about that. And then they're going to engage. They're going to engage the enemy with the proper type of ammunition and handgun because they learned from that clip. And they're going to engage with your audience. They're going to engage with the clip. They're going to want to listen to you. So simple things like that. Go find people that that are interesting and listen to what they're talking about and understand that they take a stance on something. Nobody likes a fucking fence sitter. Like, stop sitting on the fence. This is like a good rule of doctrine for everybody in life right now. With what's going on in the country and what's going on in the world, like, stop sitting on the fucking fence. Pick a side, do some research, blah, blah, blah. And then get a mic like this and go talk about it. Go spit it out to the world. So be interesting, be passionate, be all these things. So let's break it down a little bit, though. An example, too, Andy Frisella, we talked about, he's sitting there spitting his opinion and a lot backed by a lot of facts, and he gets pretty dramatic and he yells. It fires people up. It's his content is like repurposed by a lot of people with motivational music or whatever. And so it works. So when you're looking at your podcast, kind of find out where you want to be, who you want to be like, and then don't forget to be yourself as well, right? So we'll get into that as well. I want to talk about the skills you need to be a podcast host, to be interesting, but then also remaining authentic is really important. In fact, it's so important that my friend Jared Everett and I, which you'll see soon, we're going to be debuting our podcast together. It's called Authentic Identity. And we're just breaking down how the fuck we became who the fuck we are. That's what we're breaking it down to. Who am I? Who is he? How did we get this way? And we analyze kind of our backgrounds. And we hope to do this with other people as well once we kind of get established who we are for the audience. We talk about where we came from and why we came from such different backgrounds and then ended up with such similar ideas, similar attributes and disciplines that led us to be extremely successful in the door-to-door industry. And now I've started a company with my wife. She's been running it for years, and now I work for her, right? It's been cool. It's been awesome to map that out. And then he's got his story too. So the whole point of that podcast is to be authentic. So we'll dive into that as well. But first things first, one of my favorite examples of podcasters is Theo Vaughn. I can't remember his real name, but it's crazy. He says it on a podcast with Tom Segura. But he's a comedian. If you don't know him, which you probably, if you don't know him, get out of the rock you live under and go find him. But a lot of comedians out there, they are wonderful examples of great podcast hosts. They're interesting. They're funny. They captivate their audience and they do very well. Not all of them do well, but most of them do. If they're a big stand-up comedian that has a good following, then they have a great podcast usually. It's entertaining. Is it useful at all? Is it like educational? No, but it's entertaining is number one. If your podcast is entertaining and then it also happens to be informative, it also happens to be passionate and like maybe opinionated in the way you are, or the way you don't like, whatever, those things come second. But I think the first thing and most important is entertainment value. How entertaining is it to sit down and listen to somebody if they're born, it's going to vary based on the person. So Theo Vaughn is a great example. Tom Segura and his wife, they run a podcast called Your Mom's House. Just hilarious. He also runs Two Bears, One Caves. So they have multiple podcasts where they're just being themselves, being authentic, being entertaining. So go learn from like comedic podcasters. That's huge. They're kind of undervalued, right? A lot of people right now, if you're listening to this podcast, evaluate yourself. You're like, how many different types of podcasts do I listen to? You might listen to multiple podcasts, but what are they? Are they a different genre, right? Trust me on this. You want a wide variety of podcasts going in your ears so you can stay. If you're running your podcast yourself, pull elements from everything. Nothing is original anyway. So, mimic the people you like, make it entertaining. And to whatever level that is, whatever your brand is, let's dive into that more detailed. We talked about Theo Vaughn. We talked about Andy Frisella. They share a lot of similarities, but basically, if you're whether it's a comedy podcast or something, like articulation is super crucial. Make sure you're easily understood by your audience. Speak well, not speak good. Speak well. I make this mistake all the time. I don't always speak correctly, but I like to write a lot. I like to write a short story or just in journals. And so it really helps with my articulation, especially if you're in like a sales position or if you're in a job where you do marketing or you whatever. Maybe you're a host for something else. Like, I don't know, whatever your job is, it will only make you better at it if you can articulate well. If you can communicate, the art of communicating the English language to another human is super important for any podcast as well, for just anything, but for podcasting especially. So if you're not speaking correctly, or if you don't understand the English language well, that's probably something you could improve on, right? Get better at that. Speak better. Get a better vocabulary. Learn new words and learn how to use them. It's impressive. Another thing too with storytelling, right? Any type of story, podcasting is basically just storytelling. It's two people sitting down and they're telling a story. Like, think about Joe Rogan's podcast. Some guy went on an adventure in the Amazon and wrote a book about it. So Joe Rogan brings him on the podcast and they want to hear their story. And if the guy's like, I went to the Amazon and it was really cool. And it's like a sixth grader show and tell, and also my dad is an Amazon guy and I saw a crocodile in the Amazon water and freshwater dolphins. Don't do that. Right? That's a horrible presentation. That's a horrible example, but that's what like a sixth grade, book report sounds like. So understand that about storytelling. What are the aspects of storytelling? It's painting a picture. Same thing with a sales gig. I used to always tell my sales team, I'm like Bob Ross up in this bitch. Okay? Let me paint this customer or this potential client. Let me paint them a picture of how they're going to get the most effective energy windows on the market, or energy efficient windows out there on the market, how these windows are going to beautify their home and save them money on their energy bills, and then make the home more comfortable because they're not, losing that energy, all that stuff, all the equity that they're going to build in the property, the value, the warranty. And I'm just out here like masterfully brushstroking all these things like Bob Ross, putting a happy little, excuse me, God damn it, putting a happy little tree in there, putting all sorts of shit in there. So that's what you should be good at, storytelling. So that's where articulation helps with the English language. But understand that. How does a story start? How does it begin? Well, back in 1988, this story starts in 1988, and then it will flash forward and then into the present and then back. It's not a Marvel movie, but you get the idea. There's plenty of storytelling techniques that people do. So I would suggest that you look into that. Storytelling tactics, there's a whole deck of cards you can buy out there right now. There's all sorts of content. If you look up Rene Rodriguez, there's a book called Amplifying Your Influence. His whole thing is based around storytelling. I've been to his convention. It was fantastic, but he talks about telling stories, and your story in particular, right? If you have a great story, you need to be good at telling it. Otherwise, it's just mediocre, So that's something to think about as well. But just in your speaking, telling a good story is one thing. Having a good story is also one thing. But a good storyteller can make a simple visit to the grocery store the most riveting experience of their life. That's what makes a great comedian too, right? Is they tell the most mundane stories, but they put a twist on it. There's something funny, and you're rolling out of your seat laughing. So that's something that you should emulate when you're doing podcasting. But more importantly in that too is to break down the storytelling, to break down all of this stuff. It really comes down to all of your body language. So body language, even right now, nobody's in the room, but I'm still using my hands. I'm still smiling. I'm making eye contact with the camera, which is, some people think it's hard to do. I don't have an issue with it. Probably because I talk to myself all the time. I'm basically a psychopath, schizophrenia. I have multiple personalities that I talk to in my head every day in the shower all the time. So it's easy for me. It's natural for me to talk to a camera because I feel like I'm just talking to myself. But that does help, right? The more you talk to yourself, on a serious note, right? If you want to practice a presentation, if you want to practice an intro, if you want to practice an argument that you're going to have with your spouse or somebody, or a family member at Thanksgiving, every Thanksgiving you want to get all political with the family, you better practice in the shower. Practice on your drive, turn the music off, and just talk to yourself. Speak to yourself. Almost everybody I know that's done that well, they know how to speak well, they articulate well, they sell well, they're top salesmen, they're presenters. There's something, because they practice, they get a lot more reps than the average person who just sits there and drives. Or if all you do is listen to music, turn that shit off. Be with your thoughts for a little bit. Get some pen and paper too and write that out. And then write the same sentence 2 to 3 times too. That helps me a lot. Sometimes I'll be writing a book or a short story or a journal, and I'll write something down, and then I'll read it out loud. I'm like, that doesn't even sound right. I'm like, I said "and" about 75 times. I didn't put a comma down, right? So these are all things I do just to help me with articulation and to understand how I speak and how I write, and to do it correctly. And thank God for spell check, but spell check doesn't always catch the misuse of commas or punctuations or the lack thereof. So go learn that stuff. It's very helpful when preparing anything. That would be my first recommendation. If you're out there getting on a podcast and you're like, how can I get better? How often do you write? How often are you reading? How often do you talk to yourself out loud? That's huge. You should be very comfortable with the sound of your own voice. Record yourself on a phone. If you're like, I think I could start a podcast, record yourself talk for 10 minutes or more about a certain topic and see if you can do that weekly for an hour, right? That's a good test before you go buy any equipment, before you go looking and shopping for pricing. It's like, what do you have talent-wise to bring to the bank, right? Because what happens is a lot of people, they'll have a good conversation with somebody else, and they're like, man, that was such a good conversation. We should do a podcast. And then that's a great place to start. But like, when you get into the thick of it, and, you know, especially if you have another partner with you, like Brandon and Jeff, like they have two people running the same podcast, the Solid Podcast, run by Brandon Neal and Jeff Fieldstead. If one of them is gone, the other one can pick up the slack and run the interview, right? Or run the show and do that. But a lot of times conversations are sometimes one-sided. So if one element of your conversation is gone, if Tim's so awesome and wise and he's gone, and it's just up to me and Brad to run the podcast, and we're like, hey, Brad. And he's like, hey, man. Or like, that's going to be boring, right? So understand that about yourself. Look deeply and be like, can I really just talk to myself? Like, can I just record this on my phone? Can I stay interesting to myself for 20 minutes in a full conversation without any pauses, without any like, what am I going to talk about? Right? Can I stay interesting for that long? That's a good exercise to understand if you have what it takes to actually be a podcasting host, or to run a show about something that you're passionate about, or just monologue at a camera like this. So good skills to develop if you're in sales or you're presenting or you want to build a brand.
Yeah, if you're a podcast host and you're relying on your guests to essentially carry the weight of your podcast, you are probably having the wrong approach.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks for jumping in, Mal, because it's okay to bring interesting people on, and you can kind of let them steal the show. But a good podcast host is still extremely interesting themselves, but they know how to create interesting dialogue around that individual to extract it out of them. So understanding how to question people, right, is super important as well. Asking good questions in any sales environment, or if you're trying to get engagement from an audience, it's the same thing. There's also a guy on the internet, I can't remember his name, but he's kind of a little Asian guy, and I think he speaks with a British accent, but he's phenomenal to listen to. He breaks down all of these things. And I'll have to pull his name up. I'm probably doing him a huge disservice right now. So we'll save that for another guy. Maybe Mal can look him up. I think you know who I'm talking about, Mal, right?
No idea. Sorry.
Okay. But yeah, having those skills is super important. So being able to tell a story, that's like a whole nother episode. We'll do an episode next time about storytelling, and I'll break down the fundamentals of storytelling. But you as an individual, right? Can you talk? Are you good at speaking? Are you good at talking? Do you talk to yourself? Yes, no. Answer those questions. But if you want to get better at it, go take some sales training. Like, what's my tonality right now? I'm not just monotoning this whole podcast like this and not being interesting. I'm bringing up tone. I'm pushing it down. I'm also using it for emphasis, right? This is so crucial. Me and Mal had a conversation about this too. We've been studying some audiobook readings, some narration. And we've had some amateurs in the studio. We've had some pros. We've had some people just wanting to record their book. And they all do a great job of reading. But once you compare a professional narration to someone who's never done that before, it's holy shit. It's like night and day. Night and day. So understanding that in any performance, because if you don't think this is true, put something in the comments here. Tell me I'm wrong. But every time you're doing a podcast, a solo one especially, it's literally a performance. It is a piece of entertainment that can add value, or just entertainment, but that's adding value to somebody. If their earballs and eyeballs are on that content, it's added value to them in some way. It's captivated them. So how do you keep people's interest? Well, topics is one thing, but then also how you speak is huge, right? Same thing with book narration. So important, like how you breathe even, and where you pause, right? If I was to read something out loud, let me read something. This is my old journal as well. I've turned it into a little content journal. This is something from March of last year.
Are you about to tell us your deepest, darkest secrets?
No, this is a sales journal.
No, I'm just kidding.
So yeah, it's pretty deep and dark in there, but nothing's secret. So this is a quote from the book Think and Grow Rich, written by Napoleon Hill. And I'll read this a couple different ways so you can see how I'm thinking. I'll read it really shittily first. One of the main weaknesses of mankind is the average man's familiarity with the word impossible. He knows all the rules which will not work. He knows all the things which cannot be done. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. That was a quote I wrote down. But you saw that, right? Like weird pauses, weird emphases where like it doesn't really matter, right? That happens a lot. And we've experienced that with some narration that we've done, and like it gets exhausting to hear. It's still great information to hear, but it compared to like a professional narration, right? It's different. So let me read this correctly now. One of the main weaknesses of mankind is the average man's familiarity with the word impossible. He knows all the rules which will not work. He knows all the things which cannot be done. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Right, the emphasis there, the tonality, right? I wasn't trying to make everything so awesome, or I wasn't monotone, right? So there's the opposite of monotone, which is one of the main weaknesses of mankind is the average man's familiarity with the word impossible. He knows all, that's monotone, right? And then there's the opposite of that, which is like over inflection. One of the main weaknesses of mankind is the average man's, like that's even a little bit better than I read it the first time, but you get the idea, right? You're not over inflecting and you're not monotone. You're in the middle. So I'll read it again. One of the main weaknesses of mankind is the average man's familiarity with the word impossible. See how I paused there for a second? With the word impossible. Pause because there's a period. He knows all the rules which will not work. He knows all the things which cannot be done. Written by Napoleon Hill, blah, 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 Think and Grow Rich. Here's my next sentence here. I really enjoy the works of Napoleon Hill. I have referenced his book many times in this journal. I understand that growing rich becomes with a mindset. I need to break the mental conditioning my culture, my family, and my friends have imposed upon me. We have been conditioned to stay poor. Those are my own words based off that quote. That's what I read that morning, wrote the quote down, and then that's what I wrote. And yeah, it was simple, nothing too fancy. It was just some thoughts I had. But the point is practice writing out your thoughts, practice speaking out your thoughts, especially if you want to sound articulate or improve your articulation. The more preparation you do, the better your product will be. Right, the better anything. Luck only happens when opportunity and preparation meet. Then you get lucky. And I do this every day. I've been slacking a little bit this summer, but I still journal very, very often. And I just love writing down thoughts that help me stay articulate and help me stay interesting to some degree. I'm not always, the best. That not everybody could be interesting all the time without being like regurgitating some stuff, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, I'm good at speaking to myself, therefore I can speak to anybody, right? So get better at speaking to yourself alone in the shower, in a car ride. Put these thoughts together. Get the repetitions in, write them out. Do that stuff. That will help you be a better podcaster, a better presenter. It'll help you be more interesting. And I lost my place up here. It'll just help a lot. So also your tone is super important as well. If you've never done anything in a call center, people can hear when you're smiling. They can hear when you're not smiling. They can hear when I'm smiling, right? You can hear this right now. I am smiling. Because when I'm smiling, I also change my tone involuntarily. I can't help but have an upbeat tone right now. But if I'm not smiling and I'm just sitting here relaxed and I like drop my shoulders into my diaphragm and it kind of pushes me to talk a little bit differently, I'm bound to exhibit different attributes in my tone, right? Gesture is especially important if you're running a video podcast, or I would say both. If you're not, if you're just on audio, like make sure you gesture. Now you're not doing gestures like this. So when you're trying to be serious, like, don't overdo it. Don't overexcite yourself. Don't piss your britches. Keep it calm, but like use gesture, emphasize things too. When I say this, I am saying this. Like I am emphasizing what I'm saying, even with my gesture. Like this is important, right? It makes my tonality change. It makes my whole voice sound a little bit different. Your whole body language, everything matches. It's all congruent. So, and then facial expressions as well. Like, don't be afraid to look at your camera, look at your guests, look at your audience. Hello, world. Hello, beautiful people. Thanks for tuning in. There's nothing weirder than it's like, hi, welcome to the podcast. Oh, fuck, they saw me. Like, what? Welcome to our podcast today. It's going to be so cool. And I can't look at you guys. Like, what? Just look at the camera. Hey, what's up? Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for looking at my ugly mug while I sit here and spout some shit that might help you, that might not help you, right? But yeah, this is what we're trying to help you with, is like, just be better. If you already know this stuff, just pass this episode on to somebody else. Just get some laughs out of it. Go talk to yourself, have a conversation by yourself. My wife catches me all the time having fake arguments or telling fake jokes or like prepping a joke that I will never tell to anybody. It's just stupid. Working on material for the comedy show that I have in my head that doesn't exist in real life, I just talk to myself a lot. Especially on the road. If I'm working out a problem too, it's become a process for me on solving my issues or coming to a conclusion if there's something dramatic happening in my life or whatever. But these are all very, very important things. So working on yourself and your articulation and your ability to speak and present, sometimes it comes natural from people. Some people are just gifted in this regard. I think, honestly, if I tied it to anything, it was like the household I grew up in. I had to act and walk and talk a certain way in order to get favor with my parents and to get validation from them and to be able to go out on the weekends and do that stuff. And very religious household. And so I had to like kind of fake it till I made it. I had to understand how to get dramatic, and I got good at telling stories. And so at a youth group or something, I would like say some amazing testimony, and a lot of times it was the way I really felt, but like I embellished things, and I got good at telling, funny stories, and I also got good at telling little white lies that would get me out of trouble or get the heat off my back because I was expected to be a certain way so much. And it was kind of like a survival instinct for me to do that. If I wanted to not get grounded over the dumbest things, I had to learn how to fib and do these things, and learn how to sell. I had to sell my parents, my family, like on ideas that I had, for me to like, hey, here's why I should be able to go out. Here's why I put together like a PowerPoint one time as a joke. I should probably find that. It's on my parents' home computer, but I put together a PowerPoint. It was like 3 slides, just really cheesy, about why I should be allowed to have curfew at 11:30 instead of 10:30, right? Like, and so just stuff like that. I was the oldest child trying to sell something. And so it's really helped me out in a lot of ways in telling story and articulating. So that's something you can kind of reflect on yourself and be like, how do I maintain an interesting vibe here? Asking questions is huge. We can do a whole podcast about asking questions from a host standpoint, how to be a good storyteller. So maybe we'll do that next time.
How did your PowerPoint work?
It didn't work at all.
Oh.
I was horrible.
Okay.
Yeah, I was grounded for months at a time, because I got B's and C's. And
I was hopeful that you were going to say, yeah, it totally worked.
Yeah, big thing for my parents was no zeros. Do all the assignments and everything, and I'd go in and get an A or B on the test, but I'd have no homework done. So a lot of my teachers thought I was cheating, but I just read the textbook like on my own the day prior to the test. I'd be like, just read the textbook. Not every class. I didn't ace every test. I was pretty lazy in high school, but you know, that was a big thing for my family. I was like, no zeros, do the work, do everything all the time. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. But if I had, even if I had an A or B in the class, if I had zeros stacking up, like I was skipping my homework and not turning them in, then like I just get grounded for weeks until those zeros turned into not zeros, until I like got credit for the assignment, which you can imagine after 3 months of me not doing my homework. So it was kind of like they imposed it. They followed through with it. I gave them respect for that, but like I just didn't do what they told me to do. So I just stayed grounded. But here's the funny part is they thought I was grounded, but I was actually sneaking out. Learned how to pick locks. I used to live on the second floor in my bedroom, and I would rappel out of the window with a makeshift harness that I learned at like Boy Scouts. I'd climb back up every night like Rapunzel. But then they moved me into the basement because the basement got finished, and so me and my bro slept in the basement. So that was even easier. I was out every night. Yeah, they just didn't know. So, Sneaky Blake. Modern problems require modern solutions. And if you have to be a ninja to get the fuck out of your house, do it. Anyway, back to content creation and being a good podcast host. Being authentically you as well, right? There's nothing more fearful to me. Well, there's a lot that's more fearful to me, but like, there's nothing more daunting to me where it's like, I have to come in here. Like if I wasn't passionate about podcasting and passionate about this stuff, like what we're talking about, sales and flexion and storytelling and everything that's needed for content creation, if I was not at all passionate about this, I would have a really, really, really hard time doing this consistently. I could bullshit my way through something 2 or 3 times, but to do this every week and to provide value in this space and to be creative, you got to be authentically passionate about it. Because I wrote this down right before we hit record. The internet can smell you when you're faking it. The internet will smell you when you're being disingenuous. We have been fed as a society. If you grew up in the 90s at all and you saw every fucking fake ass commercial out there, some super soaker commercial like, yeah, Hot Wheels, yeah. I remember one, it was called the Spider Slam. It was just a Hot Wheels loop, but they just made this shitty spider that got triggered. So you go through the loop and it would hit the spider and it would fall down. And the whole point of the whole thing was that your car has to race it back down the backside of the loop under the spider. And the spider looked all gnarly. It was crazy. And the advertising and all of the fucking commercials and the kids with the bowl cuts, like looking at the camera like, whoa. Like that was just crammed down our throat. We grew up on that. We grew up on this like happy-go-lucky, let's not play, no more tackle football. It just got outlawed in like when I was in like 4th or 5th grade. It's like mid-90s. Everyone got participation trophies and everybody got all this fake shit. Like it's just the society we had, like we were born into it. It just was like more and more and more and more and more fake. Do you know what I mean? And so we can smell that shit. Like anybody on the internet that has a fucking brain is like, this is some bogus shit. This is not right. And so when somebody comes at you with disingenuousness or they're trying to be someone they're not, they're trying to be this guru, they're trying to like talk in a certain way that you know them and you know them specifically, and they don't talk like that, and they don't come with that kind of energy, and they don't have that wide of a smile, like, come on down to John's Used Car Sales Emporium where you can get a car at 30% off and it's the best cars ever. Like, go watch local commercials. They're the best. Because they're not those people. They're freaking, like, dead inside. And they're trying to sell you, like, a barbecue. Everybody loves those things, right? Because it's not professionally done. It's like that. But you can see, like some of them don't even have a passion for what they're doing. So that's what the internet can smell these days. If you grew up in the 90s, if you were force-fed all these commercials about the Hot Wheels Spider Slam, wham bam Spider Slam. I forgot to finish the jingle earlier. But that was it. So if you're not being authentically you, if you're not being entertaining or like whatever, if it's forced, people will smell that shit. They'll veer away from your content. It's true. I've done it 1,000 times. Like I'll like a buddy's stuff. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, I like your effort. I'll like it. I'll repost it. But like, Jesus, that was rough. You know? Stuff like that. So be aware of like what you're doing. And then also the best thing you can do to help someone else's content is like, let them know. Be like, hey, that's not you though, dude. That doesn't feel like you. It feels like you're forcing it. It feels like you're trying something. And like, kudos for them for trying something new. But like, I'm not going to sit here and pull my punches and say freaking heck and dang and darn it. And I'm going to say fuck, shit, and damn. Because that's who I am. I'm a former Mormon Marine. Weird combo. But anyway, just be yourself is the whole thing. The internet can smell you when you're not. Okay, just double check your facts. Like, I'm going to get shit so wrong on this podcast, but that kind of comes with the territory. I'm going to spit. I'm going to throw passion and I'm going to throw opinion out there as well, mixed in with this value and what we offer, Your Content Factory, but I'm going to be wrong a lot. Okay? Just get that right. And people on the internet are going to bitch and people are going to complain. And someone's going to see my shirt and be like, oh, adrenaline, you played lacrosse, hockey's better. Or someone's going to be like, 9mm isn't better than 45. Like, people are going to throw their opinions out there, so just let them. Be authentically you. Be you. And if you should be getting better though, right? If you can't speak, if you don't know words good, fucking learn them. Be better at it, you know? Go take some sales training. It will only, if you learn to speak better, if you learn to sell, if you learn how to tone inflection and facial expressions and body and body language. And if you learn to pick up on that from other people, you will be better at whatever you want to be better at. Right? Just think about it. It's going to be awesome. Just get better. Just get better at that stuff. So, and kind of to put a funny little pin in this, like I'm not really super prepared today. So I'm just kind of speaking from the heart. And I've been wanting to talk about this in a way where, we could get down into some details a little bit, but people are always focused on the wrong thing. Right? Even Mr. Beast, if you go watch him on some podcasts, he basically lays down the formula of how to be successful. And one of the first things he recommends is like, stop overthinking everything. Just like post your stuff, post your content and get better. Don't hesitate. If you're thinking about starting a podcast, start one. That's also one of the best ways to get better at podcasting is to start one. You want to get better at cooking? Go fucking cook. You want to get better at podcasting? Start a podcast. Get better at podcasting by doing a podcast. What a novel idea. You know what's funny too is like it's really hard to get good at war, right? Because I've been around a lot. I was in the Marines, whatever. People want to get good at war. You got to go to fucking war to get good at war. So like, it's hard unless you got some cojones on you and you commit to some stuff. Go to war, then you get good at it. So it's easier. If you look at it through that lens, you're like, holy shit, that's hard to do. But you're like, I want to get better at cooking. Well, go in your kitchen and cook. Oh, I want to get better at podcasting. Start one. Do an episode start to finish from like your whole self. Like do it all by yourself. Be a big boy and try it on and be like, oh God, that's a lot of work. Am I ready for this? Yes or no? And then if the answer is yes, then do it. If the answer is no, then call us and we'll see what we can help from you. Let us do your post-production side. Let us do stuff for you. Give us a chance. But yeah, work on getting better. Be more interesting. Stop being annoying. Stop being disingenuous. Stop being boring. Just because you speak doesn't mean you should do a podcast. Like, think about it, right? Get better at it. Like, shout out to Derek Lake because he's gotten way better at it. And it was rough at the beginning. He knows it too, but that's why he just figured if I'm going to get better at this, I got to start it. So it's kudos to that. That's a chef's kiss right there. And that'll about do it for me today. That's going to wrap it up for Your Content Factory. I hope you enjoyed my lunacy and this ranting and this nonsensical smorgasbord of ideas that I have dumped onto you willingly or unwillingly. If you've made it this far, it's consensual.
I love that all of a sudden you got like a Jersey accent going.
Yeah. I don't know why.
That was really fun. I like that.
Emphasize that. You know what? I've noticed that too. When I used to cuss people out in the Marines, I used to get fucking attitude. I think it's because I watched my aunts and uncles from Connecticut.
Really?
They grew up on the East Coast. So when I saw them get passionate or mad, they kind of adopted a little bit of that accent. So I think I did that subconsciously.
I think you should keep that as something that's part of your personality.
Over here. I'm walking over here.
Exactly.
No. But really, let's hopefully this was helpful in making everybody better podcasting hosts. I'm open to criticism as well. If there's something I'm doing horribly wrong, let me know. We'll do a whole episode about it. We'll call it Blake's Shitty Stuff episode. And we'll just kind of analyze it there. But that's been it. I think we're good on time and everything. So get out of hand. I'm doing it again. But thanks. Yeah, I'm signing off. We'll see you later.